Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a story so chaotic, so glitter-dusted, and so chemically questionable that even Hollywood couldn't script it better. We're talking about the infamous little pills known as Red Devils, the barbiturate bombs that slithered their way into Hollywood's golden age, quietly tucked themselves into everyone's vanity drawers, and then proceeded to blow up careers, bodies, marriages, box offices, and yes, even the life of Marilyn Monroe. Not the glamorous, winged eyeliner, platinum blonde Marilyn you picture on posters. I mean the real woman, exhausted, overworked, sleepless, and handed medicine from doctors who acted more like Pez dispensers in expensive suits. Before we tuck ourselves in for this unsettling Hollywood bedtime story, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this chaotic little sleep corner we've built together. And thank you for suggesting this topic. It was a wild one to unravel. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow it's always either 1:47 a.m. or the middle of a laundry crisis. Now dim those lights, switch on a fan for that perfect white noise, wiggle into whatever sleep position doesn't ruin your spine, and take a deep, gentle breath. But let's pause for a second. Questions Hollywood really doesn't want to talk about. What was it actually like to be a star in the 1950s, balancing 8 cups of coffee, 2 failed marriages, and 1 studio boss breathing down your neck? Why were doctors handing out barbiturates like candy at a children's parade? What happens to your brain when your sleeping pill is strong enough to tranquilize a circus lion? How did Red Devils become the silent puppeteers behind broken careers, shattered relationships, and whispered scandals? And how in the world did you wake up in 1956 Hollywood with a contract you didn't read, makeup melting in the California heat, and a studio doctor handing you a tiny red pill with a smile that says, "This will fix everything," even though it absolutely will not? Congratulations, you've just woken up in old Hollywood. The year is 1956, everyone's gorgeous, everyone's anxious, and everyone's medicated. Good luck. You wake up to find that your entire life is now owned by a studio the way a toddler owns a cookie. Fiercely, messily, and with no intention of sharing. Every hour, outfit, calorie, and breath is scheduled by men in suits who say things like, "Think positive," while chain-smoking through a mortgage of anxiety. The first thing you notice is the clipboard. It's hovering above you like a strict aunt at Thanksgiving, ready to judge your posture and your life choices. The studio assistant holding it clears his throat, which is Hollywood, for your time belongs to us now. Before you've even sat up, he's already informing you that you're late for your 6:15 a.m. smile training. Apparently your natural smile reads as too human, and the studio wants something warmer, but also colder, and also somehow more symmetrical. You're whisked into a car so polished it reflects all your insecurities back at you, then driven to the lot where dreams go to be aggressively managed. The air smells like hairspray, ambition, and the faint odour of someone's hopes being crushed in a nearby soundstage. A handler hands you a breakfast smoothie that tastes like sadness and chalk. It's supposed to optimise your cheekbones. You're not sure how nutrition works anymore, but you're too tired to argue. Your day begins with the wardrobe department, which isn't so much a room as it is a textile cult. They circle you with measuring tapes, muttering numbers like prophecies. If any measurement is off by more than half an inch, someone gasps dramatically as if you've brought shame on your ancestors. "She's retaining water," one whispers. Or emotions, another says gravely, as if feelings were a contagious disease. Next comes makeup, where 4 people dab at your face like Renaissance artists restoring a damaged cathedral. You overhear someone say your skin tone needs a mood adjustment. You're not sure what that means, but they mix 3 foundations, a highlighter, and something that smells like a tangerine having a midlife crisis, and suddenly you're camera ready. Everywhere you go, someone reminds you to relax, which is Hollywood code for tension looks bad in 35mm. Relaxation advice typically comes from someone who has not relaxed since 1934. One executive pulls you aside and says, "Just breathe naturally," while simultaneously handing you a 30-page scene rewrite and a pill bottle rattling like a maraca of questionable life decisions. Then it's off to a publicity meeting, which is less about honesty and more about crafting a fictional version of yourself that the public won't find threatening. You're asked what your hobbies are. You say reading. They immediately change it to birdwatching, because it is apparently less intellectual and more marketable. They also inform you that rumour control is working overtime this week, because someone spotted you yawning, which has been interpreted as rebellion. The studio is currently debating whether to blame it on allergies. By lunchtime, you've had no actual lunch. Your meal is a small plate of strategically placed lettuce, a single almond, and a motivational pep talk from your diet coach, who stares at you like a disappointed pelican. You're reminded that staying thin is crucial for glamour, even though glamour is the thing currently draining the life essence from your body. Afternoons are reserved for script rehearsals, dialect coaching, dance lessons, posture correction, and something called emotional softening, which involves staring into a mirror until you no longer look like someone who needs 8 hours of sleep. At some point, you begin to wonder when you last had a thought that wasn't on your schedule. The answer is last Tuesday, around 4:12 p.m, before someone sternly told you that independent thinking confuses the brand. By sunset, you're ushered into a mandatory morale meeting where the producers tell you how lucky you are. Very lucky, incredibly lucky, to be here. You nod, smiling a studio-approved smile while 3 executives decide which emotions you're allowed to feel this quarter. And as you finally stumble back to your dressing room chair, peeling off your corset like a lizard shedding its regrets, a quiet realization settles in. You may be the star, but the studio is the one running the show. You're just here to hit your marks, say your lines, and sparkle convincingly while being gently, but firmly, steered like a celebrity-shaped Roomba through the golden age of Hollywood. Your new doctor smiles warmly while casually handing you pills strong enough to knock out a Victorian horse. He calls them sleep helpers, but the label might as well say "Goodnight, sweet prince." He assures you they're safe, mostly because everyone else is already taking them. The examination room looks more like a wealthy uncle study than a medical facility. Dark mahogany, velvet curtains, and a faint smell of cigars mixed with moral ambiguity. There's a stethoscope somewhere, probably, but it's mostly used as a prop to remind you he's technically a doctor. He waves you toward the exam table, which is covered not in the usual sterile paper, but a soft sheet embroidered with the studio logo. A branding opportunity, even here. He asks you how you're sleeping. You laugh nervously, because sleeping in Hollywood is like winning the lottery. Possible, but only technically. You tell him you've been anxious, overstimulated, underfed, overworked, and possibly hallucinating a little. He nods empathetically, scribbles something on a pad, and hands you another bottle of the exact same pills he gave you last time, and the time before that, and the time before you started losing track of what year it is. Everyone uses them, he says reassuringly, which is not reassuring at all. It's like someone saying everyone jumps off this cliff, you'll be fine. He tells you even the studio heads take Red Devils, except they take them recreationally, not medicinally, which feels like a detail that should concern someone. He taps your knee with a reflex hammer, not because it's necessary, but because he likes to see a clean, crisp reaction. Perfect, he says, as if your involuntary leg twitch is proof that you're thriving. He asks if you've been eating. You tell him you've been consuming mostly lettuce, nerves, and the occasional almond. He beams. Excellent. Light meals pair beautifully with the medication. Then he asks if you felt sad lately. You hesitate. Sadness is tricky here. Hollywood expects you to be emotional on cue, but not too emotional, and absolutely not emotional without the proper lighting. You admit you've cried between takes once or twice. He nods knowingly and hands you another prescription. These ones are for mood balance, he says cheerfully, as if mood balance is a seasoning you sprinkle onto your personality. He walks you through best practices, which include taking 1 pill when you can't sleep, 2 when you're stressed, and 3 if your publicist says tomorrow is a big day. There are warnings printed on the bottle, but the font is so small you'd need a microscope and 2 interns to read it. Besides, the doctor waves dismissively and tells you not to worry. He's been prescribing these for years. The studio pays him very well to keep everyone functional, or at least functional looking. On the way out, he asks you to sign a form acknowledging that you've received wellness support. You sign it even though you're not entirely sure wellness is the right word for what just happened. The form disappears into a cabinet already overflowing with identical forms, a historical archive of collective denial. Back outside, the sun hits your face like a spotlight and you squint, clutching your new bottle of pharmaceutical optimism. You can feel the day's exhaustion trailing behind you like a dramatic cape. Someone from the studio waves you over for a promotional meeting, but your brain is already floating gently away on a red devil cloud. You walk in slow motion, not because it's artistic, but because the pills have turned your legs into warm, sleepy noodles. Later that night, staring at your reflection under the harsh glow of your vanity bulbs, you wonder when medical advice started sounding more like a bedtime story with a questionable moral. The pills rattle softly when you set them down, a tiny applause reminding you that Hollywood doesn't run on sleep, it runs on performing the illusion of sleep. You crawl into bed, the city humming outside, and you take 1 pill. Just 1. Your doctor's voice echoes in your mind. They're safe. Everyone uses them. And as your eyelids drift lower, as your thoughts dissolve into a soft cinematic haze, you realize something important. In Hollywood, the doctors aren't treating your exhaustion. They're managing it, like everything else, 1 red pill at a time. The first time you hold a red devil, it looks innocent, like a cinnamon candy or a bead from a costume necklace. But these tiny fireballs aren't for accessorizing. They're pure barbiturate mayhem, ready to tuck you in so aggressively that your dreams file higher complaints. You roll the pill between your fingers, surprised at how lightweight it is. Something this small shouldn't have the power to rearrange your consciousness, but Hollywood loves overachievers. It glints under the dressing room lights, a tiny red promise of rest, or at least a temporary pause from thinking about all the things you're supposed to be thinking about. A studio assistant pops her head in and chirps, "You'll feel floaty," as if floaty is a measurable medical outcome. She winks like you're in on the secret, but the only thing you're in on is the growing suspicion that floaty might actually mean emotionally unavailable for 6 to 8 hours. You finally swallow it, and 30 minutes later, your limbs feel warm and sluggish, like they've been dipped in honey by someone who misunderstood the meaning of a wellness treatment. Your thoughts slow until each one arrives, like a polite visitor tapping softly on the front door of your brain. It's peaceful, in a slightly alarming way, the chemical equivalent of someone smoothing down your worries with a warm iron. But red devils don't just send you to sleep, they escort you there like bodyguards with a questionable Yelp rating. You don't drift off gently, you plummet. 1 second you're brushing your hair, the next you're lying on your bed fully clothed, wondering how long you've been asleep and why your shoes are still on. The dreams that follow aren't dreams so much as feature-length films, confusing, over budget, and directed by someone with unresolved issues. When you wake up, there's a moment, just a breath, where you feel rested. But then your limbs protest, your vision swims, and your brain feels like it's rebooting after too many tabs were open. You shuffle to the kitchen like a zombie who misplaced their motivation. Coffee helps, sort of. Mostly it just argues loudly with whatever molecules of barbiturate are still having a party in your bloodstream. On set, you try pretending everything's fine. Actors are good at pretending, but red devils have their own way of announcing themselves. You blink slowly, you speak softly, you glide instead of walk. The director squints at you, unable to articulate whether you look ethereal or vaguely haunted. "Use it," he finally says, because Hollywood can turn any side effect into a creative choice. Around you, everyone seems to be on something. Red devils, blue heavens, green dreams, enough colours to rival a box of crayons that failed its licensing exam. You overhear co-stars comparing dosages like competitive gardeners discussing tomato varieties. Someone claims they can take 2 red devils and still rehearse a scene. Someone else claims they once took one and woke up in Palm Springs 3 days later, holding a ukulele they did not own. Studio doctors insist the pills aren't addictive, though they say it with the same confidence as someone recommending a timeshare. And studios love them, because rested stars are reliable stars, and reliable stars make movies on schedule. Your sleep isn't about health, it's about productivity. The pill is less a cure and more a tool, like mascara or lighting, or the carefully manufactured persona attached to your press releases. Back in your room after another long day, you open the bottle again. The pills rattle softly, a tiny chorus singing, "Take one, rest, forget." You hesitate. You think about how the world blurs pleasantly when you take them, and how sharply it snaps back into focus when you don't. Red devils don't ask you to sleep, they insist upon it. You swallow another. Within minutes, your thoughts loosen, unraveling gently like a scarf sliding off a hook. Your heartbeat steadies, your muscles melt. Your consciousness dims like theatre lights before a show, soft, slow, inescapable. And as you sink into the mattress, eyes heavy, breath deepening, you realise that red devils don't just help you sleep, they help Hollywood keep moving, one chemically softened celebrity at a time. Once upon a time, sleep happened naturally. Now it's a group project between your pills, your nerves, your ego, and whatever leftover adrenaline you absorbed from the director yelling at you earlier. Sleep used to be simple. You got tired, you closed your eyes, and your brain said, "Good night," with the innocent enthusiasm of a children's television host. In Hollywood, though, sleep is no longer a bodily function. It's a negotiation, a hostile merger, a messy collaboration between chemical sedatives and sheer emotional exhaustion. Your nighttime routine now resembles the pre-flight checklist of a very nervous pilot. Did you take your red devil? Did you drink water? Did you avoid caffeine after 4 p.m? Did you avoid thinking about anything stressful? Did you avoid remembering that you're contractually obligated to be glowing and charismatic by 8 a.m? You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. The ceiling stares back. Both of you agree you should be asleep by now. Neither of you knows how that's supposed to happen. Before Hollywood, bedtime was a peaceful ritual. Now it's an athletic event. Your mind races through the day's disasters, the line you flubbed, the makeup chair gossip, the producer's note that said appear happier, which is exactly the sort of vague command that ruins 3 weeks of your life. Your pulse quickens. The red devil tries to intervene. Your nerves ignore it. Your ego joins the conversation, bringing up things you said in 1948. It doesn't help that your call time is always some cursed pre-dawn hour no human should experience willingly. 5 a.m. used to be a rumour. Now it's a lifestyle. You try to drift off, but sleep refuses to arrive until your body has fully catalogued every mistake you've ever made. Around 2 a.m, you finally start feeling drowsy, not because you're relaxed, but because your brain has simply given up arguing. When sleep does come, it doesn't feel natural. It falls onto you like a heavy velvet curtain, smothering and theatrical. Your dreams are a disorganized mix of movie sets, forgotten lines, and directors who appear in the sky like angry deities. Everything is a little too vivid, a little too dramatic, as if your subconscious hired its own lighting crew. You jolt awake several times because your body can no longer remember how long sleep is supposed to last. Was that an hour, a minute, a small eternity? Who knows? Time stopped being linear the moment you signed with the studio. Morning arrives sooner than any mortal creature could possibly be ready for. Your alarm clock screams at you like a furious chicken. You slap it. It screams louder. Standing up feels like emerging from a swamp, slow, heavy, and accompanied by the overwhelming desire to lie back down and stay there for 6 to 9 business days. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror. Your hair is doing improv. Your face is somewhere between ethereal ghost and person who lost a fight with gravity. And yet, the schedule demands you be perky, polished, and camera-ready by sunrise. You reach for coffee because caffeine is your emotional support beverage now. One sip and your heart rate leaps like it's auditioning for a tap number. The red devil and the coffee begin an argument inside you, one trying to push you back to sleep, the other trying to drag you into consciousness by your collarbone. You float somewhere between the two, not fully awake, not fully asleep, just existing in a dreamlike haze that Hollywood insists is totally normal. Throughout the day, you find yourself blinking slowly in conversations, unsure whether you're actually present or just pretending convincingly. You yawn so often that makeup keeps powdering your face to hide evidence of biological needs. Someone cheerfully asks if you slept well, and you laugh. An unhinged, exhausted little laugh that tells them absolutely everything. By the time night rolls around again, you're so tired that your bones are whispering. You take another red devil, you lie down, you wait, and once more the group project that is your sleep schedule begins its clumsy, chaotic dance. You used to go to sleep. Now you negotiate with it, and somehow you still show up the next morning. Hollywood executives greet you every morning with a friendly reminder that you're simultaneously too thin and not thin enough, which is medically impressive. They hand you a pill to calm down about it, then another pill to wake you up from the last pill. The cycle begins before you've even finished your first sip of water. The studio rep materializes beside you, clipboard in hand, wearing a smile so tight it could slice glass. They gently remind you that the camera adds 10 pounds, a fact they recite as though it's a foundational law of physics. You nod, even though you've never actually seen evidence of this mythical 10-pound phenomenon. But arguing would only make them hand you a pamphlet titled Understanding Your On-Screen Shape, which is somehow both insulting and confusing. Your breakfast arrives under a silver dome, and for a moment, you hope they've granted you something luxurious. Oatmeal maybe, even toast. But no, it's half a grapefruit, 3 almonds, and a note encouraging you to radiate lightness, whatever that means. After eating your brief and deeply unsatisfying meal, you're ushered toward wardrobe, where a new wave of existential dread routinely washes over you. Wardrobe fittings are less about clothing and more about surveillance. The designers circle you like hawks evaluating a particularly nervous rabbit. They tug at seams, pinch at fabric, and announce your measurements loudly enough for the next county to hear. One of them scribbles something on a notepad while squinting, the kind of squint that suggests disappointment, concern, or possibly indigestion. You can't tell which. Either way, it's not great. Could we get a tighter silhouette, one murmurs, or perhaps less silhouette? You're not sure how to have less silhouette without bending the laws of corporeal existence. But Hollywood has a strange relationship with science. Next comes your meeting with the studio nutritionist, a woman whose bones appear to have never encountered sodium. She sits you down, folds her hands, and asks if you've considered thinking thinner. You explain that thoughts, sadly, do not burn calories. She looks heartbroken. Instead, she gives you a customized diet plan made entirely of liquids, air, and the occasional celebratory carrot. By midday, you're hungry enough to reconsider the potted plant in your dressing room, but before you can investigate whether ficus leaves are edible, you're summoned to makeup. The artists here are kind, but their job is essentially to paint a masterpiece over your slowly unraveling sanity. They contour your cheekbones until they could cut through drywall. They highlight your brow bone until you resemble a celestial being. They powder your face so aggressively it feels like a mild geological event. Just when you finally feel remotely confident, or at least convincingly decorated, an executive pokes their head into the room to remind you that your eyes should pop more. You look at them blankly, wondering how much popping is legally allowed. Throughout the day, you overhear conversations that sound less like creative collaboration and more like corporate body commentary. Is her jawline sharp enough? Can we tighten her waist in post? Would she look younger if she blinked less? The absurdity becomes so overwhelming that you start floating outside yourself, watching from above like a mildly sedated ghost. You see the star, you, nodding obediently, accepting every critique, every demand, every impossible standard, as gently as a leaf caught in a strong wind. By evening, the hunger, exhaustion, and chemically induced calm swirl into a soft, woozy haze. You glance at your reflection. Under the powder and lashes and layers of expectation, you're still there. Tired, yes, but stubbornly present. The executives can micromanage your measurements, your food, your schedule, your lighting, even your posture, but they can't quite extinguish the human beneath the glamour, the heartbeat behind the murky glow. You step onto set anyway, not because you're flawless, but because you're surviving. And in Hollywood, survival is the beauty standard. A day on set starts at dawn, ends at midnight, and contains the emotional arc of 6 nervous breakdowns. Red Devils aren't recreational, they're survival tactics. The cameras see everything, including the fact that you haven't slept since Tuesday. Your wake-up call arrives in the form of a studio assistant knocking on your door like they're trying to scare away a ghost. You peel yourself out of bed, limbs heavy, eyes half-glued shut, wondering briefly if you're alive or just doing a flawless impression of someone alive. Hollywood doesn't wait for clarity. Hollywood needs you on set in 22 minutes. You shuffle into the makeup trailer, a glowing shrine of mirrors, hot lights, and professionals who've stopped asking, "How are you?" Because the answer is always the same: tired, thanks. They treat your face like an emergency restoration project. Concealer goes under your eyes in thick layers, each one meant to bury the evidence of your questionable sleep schedule. Meanwhile, a hairstylist sprays your scalp with enough hairspray to survive a Category 5 hurricane. You sit there, blinking slowly, while someone else glues your fake lashes on with the speed and precision of a bomb technician. All of this happens before you've formed a single complete thought. Then you're marched to set, a cavernous warehouse filled with lights bright enough to interrogate a medieval spy. The director greets you with the manic energy of someone who's had 3 coffees and no boundaries. "We're behind schedule," he announces, even though the sun literally just rose. Being behind schedule is Hollywood's default emotional state. Your first scene is a simple line, something like, "I'll be right back." But because your body is running on caffeine fumes and leftover barbiturates, it takes you 8 takes to say it convincingly. You start to wonder if the sentence even makes sense. Will you be right back? Do any of us return? These are big philosophical questions for 6:45 a.m. Between shots, you stand under hot lights that cook you slowly, like a nervous rotisserie chicken. Crew members dart around, adjusting equipment with silent determination, stepping over cables that appear to multiply each hour like snakes. The camera operator keeps squinting, probably because your eyelids are drooping lower and lower with every take. By lunchtime, which arrives sometime around 4 p.m, You're so hungry you could eat the prop furniture. Instead, you get a salad that looks like it was prepared by someone morally opposed to flavour. You eat it anyway, because the next scene requires you to pour your entire emotional soul into crying convincingly, and apparently lettuce won't make you puffy. The afternoon blurs into evening. You film a dramatic argument scene where your co-star forgets their lines every third sentence, forcing you to repeat the same emotional meltdown over and over like a malfunctioning diva robot. The director claps excitedly every time you cry on cue, unaware that the tears are 30% acting and 70% utter physical fatigue. Around 9 p.m, someone brings you a coffee the size of a small dog. You drink it even though your heart is already beating like a hummingbird disappointed in your choices. The red devil you took last night is still lurking in your bloodstream, grumbling at the caffeine like two divorced parents arguing over custody of your consciousness. The final scene of the night is the worst one, a complicated sequence that requires you to look glamorous while sprinting, emoting, and pretending not to be out of breath. You do it. You absolutely do not look glamorous. The director says, "We'll fix it in post," which in Hollywood is code for, "We have accepted defeat." When the day finally wraps, it's close to midnight. You peel off your costume, feeling like you're shedding a skin you never asked to grow. Your body aches, your brain buzzes, and as you slump into your car, barely able to keep your eyes open, you realise there's only one real takeaway. Hollywood doesn't need immortals. It needs actors who can function on 3 hours of sleep and a prayer. And somehow you're becoming one of them. Marilyn floats onto set like a dream in slow motion. What the cameras don't catch is the trembling under her gloves or the dull ache behind her eyes, the look of someone held together entirely by hope, charisma, and prescription medication. The first thing you notice is the hush, a real hush, the rare kind that falls over a crew of 50 people who usually only stop talking when someone yells quiet on set. Marilyn doesn't command silence, she inspires it. People look at her the way children look at fireworks, dazzled, awestruck, and slightly worried someone might get burned. She steps out of her car with a careful grace, every movement measured, as if gravity works differently for her. The signature smile appears radiantly, effortlessly, but the second she thinks no one's looking, it fades into something softer, something tired, a tiny fracture in the illusion. Up close, Marilyn is both more and less than her legend. She's beautiful, yes, luminous even, but not in the untouchable, sculpted way the studio markets her. Her beauty has a vulnerability to it, like it might collapse if you breathe too hard. And beneath the wiggle dresses and perfect curls, she's clearly exhausted. The kind of exhaustion red devils don't fix, they just disguise. When she sits in her makeup chair, the artists flock around her like guardian angels with powder puffs. They whisper encouragements, inhale sharply when she sways slightly, and remind her softly where she needs to be next. Marilyn apologizes every time she blinks too slowly or turns her head the wrong way. She says sorry so often you start counting. By 8 a.m, she's said it 13 times. During rehearsal, she holds her script like it might bite. Her fingers shake just enough that the pages rustle, but she pretends not to notice. She repeats her lines with a breathless sweetness so iconic you forget she's acting. But then she stumbles. Just one word. One moment. You see panic flash across her face like lightning across a dark sky. She freezes, laughs nervously, apologizes again. The director, a man whose entire personality is stressed at all times, tries to hide his frustration. He can't yell at Marilyn. She's the sun the whole production orbits. So he clears his throat and says, "Let's just take it again," in the strained tone of someone who desperately wants a cigarette, or a tranquilizer, or both. Between takes, Marilyn retreats into herself, She hugs her arms, sways slightly, and whispers her lines so quietly the words barely exist. Someone hands her a small pill and a paper cup of water. She takes it without question, like a ritual she's performed 1,000 times. You realise then, Marilyn isn't the carefree bombshell the posters advertise. She's a woman managing an internal earthquake while the world demands she shine. But when the cameras roll, magic. Absolute, breathtaking magic. Her voice becomes warm honey. Her smile lights even the coldest corners of the set. She hits her marks with unstudied charm, turning chaos into charm with a tilt of her head. Watching her, you understand why America fell in love, and also why it took so much from her. Then cut is called. The magic flicker out. She looks suddenly small, too small for the giant persona she's required to inhabit. She rubs her temples. Her hands shake again. Someone swoops in with a robe, another with a reminder of her next scene, another with a time-sensitive studio note written like a plea disguised as a command. But when she catches you watching, she smiles. A real smile this time, thin, weary, but sincere. Like she sees you seeing her, the woman beneath the myth. It's heartbreaking in a quiet, lingering way. And standing there, you understand something Hollywood never admits out loud. Stardom isn't weightless. It's heavy, so heavy. And Marilyn, luminous as she is carrying it all alone. You try performing while wearing shoes designed by someone who hates arches and joy. Meanwhile, your heart races at the speed of jazz drumming because your red devil is fighting your morning caffeine. You wobble onto set like a very glamorous newborn deer, trying to pretend your ankles weren't forged from damp spaghetti. The shoes gleam beautifully under the lights, patent leather, meticulously polished, but inside them, your toes are filing workplace grievances. Whoever designed these heels clearly had a vendetta against human anatomy. Or perhaps they were simply inspired by medieval torture racks and thought, but what if they were pretty? Your pulse thunders against your ribs like it's trying to escape. The caffeine you slammed an hour ago has decided it wants to start a revolution, while the lingering red devil in your bloodstream is draped across a velvet chaise lounge whispering, "Darling, relax." It's an internal boxing match, and both fighters have something to prove. Meanwhile, you're stuck in the middle, expected to look seductive, composed, and effortlessly charming, essentially a graceful jellyfish balancing on stilts. The director calls your name and you glide forward, praying silently that you don't slip, collapse, or explode. The floor beneath you looks smooth enough, but Hollywood floors are treacherous, waxed to absolute perfection, polished to a blinding sheen. One wrong shift of weight and you're reenacting a slapstick comedy routine you never auditioned for. You hit your mark, a small piece of tape on the ground that decides at this exact moment to feel about the size of a postage stamp. Your breathing grows shallow, partly from anxiety, partly from the fact that your corset is hugging your lungs like an over-enthusiastic relative. Your heart beats so loudly it feels like another actor in the scene. The scene begins. You're supposed to deliver a sultry line, something smooth and confident, but as you speak, you're convinced the audience will hear a symmetric foot pain radiating through your performance. The heels tilt your posture so dramatically that you look like you're leaning into a wind machine that doesn't exist. Your co-star gives you a concerned look, not because of your acting, which is actually pretty impressive given the circumstances, but because your left eye twitches every few seconds. It's a twitch that says, "I have not known peace in 14 days. The caffeine is winning now, elbowing the red devil out of the way. Your thoughts start sprinting, overlapping, dissolving into questions like, am I sweating? Does my face look weird? Is gravity heavier today? The director yells cut, and you exhale so sharply your soul nearly leaves your body. A makeup artist swoops in with powder. dabbing your forehead like you're a contestant in a very glamorous, very stressful game show. Someone offers you water, someone else fixes your hair, and someone else adjusts your dress so you don't trip and legally become a workplace hazard. You pace between takes trying to walk off the anxiety, but the heels click aggressively against the floor, each step sounding like a passive-aggressive typewriter. The caffeine has reached its peak intensity, your heart rate feels illegal, and the red devil has waved a little white flag, retreating into a cozy chemical nap. You are, in short, both wired and sedated. A perfect Hollywood balance. They call you back to set. Another take, another round of balancing physical pain, emotional tension, and pharmaceutical diplomacy inside your body. You try centering yourself with deep breathing, but your costume won't allow it. If you inhale too deeply, something somewhere will rip, snap, or burst. You breathe shallowly instead, the way small nocturnal animals do when startled. Finally, mercifully, the director announces that they've got it. You're released from the scene like a bird freed from captivity, except this bird is still wearing heels and can't feel two of its toes. You limp back to your dressing room, peel the shoes off with the desperation of a shipwreck survivor, and let out a sigh so long it might qualify as a monologue. The room tilts slightly, your heartbeat finally slows, and you realize something profound. Behind the glamour, the lipstick, the perfect curls and glowing lights, Hollywood anxiety is just as real. It's just wearing nicer shoes. Pills become your new co-workers. They appear in your purse, your vanity, your sandwich bag. You take one to fall asleep, one to wake up, and one because your agent said today is important. After a while, you stop remembering when the pills first arrived. They simply materialized, the way ants find picnics and studio executives find new ways to ruin your weekend. Every container you open, a makeup drawer, a clutch purse, a box labelled false eyelashes and hopes, contains at least one red devil rolling around like a tiny chemical spectator. They're part of the production now, as essential as lighting and dramatic size. Your mornings begin with the wake-her-upper pill, which is ironic because it has the energy of a disgruntled house cat. It doesn't so much wake you up as gently shove you toward consciousness. You swallow it with lukewarm coffee, experiencing the unsettling sensation of two stimulants trying to decide who's in charge. You feel your heart thump like it's testing out jazz rhythms. You blink at your reflection, and your reflection blinks back a full half-second later, as if it needs more rehearsal. Then comes the stress pill, the studio-approved emotional mute button. You're not supposed to call it that, but everyone does. It's the pill you take before interviews, table reads, costume fittings, and any meeting that includes the words branding strategy. It smooths out your internal chaos just enough to nod politely while executives make suggestions like, "Could you try being more timeless?" You take this one with water, because taking it with coffee would be like combining fireworks with a scented candle. Beautiful, but inadvisable. Throughout the day, the pills make themselves known in subtle ways. You catch one sitting in the bottom of your makeup bag like a bright red warning flare. Another one rattles out of your coat pocket when you reach for a pen. A third one shows up inside your script, trapped between the pages like a chemically enhanced bookmark. You're not sure how they get there. At this point, you suspect they reproduce. Your fellow actors speak about their pills like parents discussing their children. This one helps with my migraines. This one helps me relax. This one helps me forget I exist. Someone has a colour-coded organiser that looks like a tiny apothecary. Someone else carries theirs in a monogrammed velvet pouch. One actress keeps hers in a mint tin, which is confusing because she also keeps actual mints in the same tin, creating a daily game of will I freshen my breath or collapse gracefully onto the nearest chaise lounge. The most terrifying pill is the studio emergency pill, the one your agent hands you when something big is happening. You know it's serious when he leans in and whispers, Today is important, in the same tone people use before confessing heavyweight secrets. This pill isn't for sleep or stress, it's for performing under astronomical pressure. It's the don't embarrass the entire studio pill, you swallow it with dread. As the day wears on, your body becomes a polite battleground of chemicals negotiating peace treaties. The sleep pill from last night is fading, the stress pill keeps smoothing your edges, the wake-up pill is doing its best to pretend it's espresso, and the emergency pill is somewhere deep in your bloodstream waiting for its dramatic entrance. By evening you feel like a snow globe that's been gently shaken for 12 hours. You move slower, you speak softer. Your emotions drift lazily through your body like soap bubbles, popping whenever something mildly inconvenient happens, a missed line, a broken nail, a hair out of place. When you finally drag yourself home at night, you sit on the edge of your bed and stare at the last pill of the day. The sleep pill, the original red devil, the ringleader, the one that promises oblivion wrapped in a velvet veil. You take it, not because you want to, but because your body no longer remembers how to shut down gracefully on its own. It works. Of course, it always does. As you slip into a chemically padded dream, you realize the truth. In Hollywood, you don't manage your schedule. Your pills do. You're just along for the ride, a very glamorous passenger on a very chaotic train. After a few weeks, you stop knowing what day it is. All days are Tuesday-ish. All emotions are slightly panicked. Your pillow feels like a warm cloud of lies. Your alarm goes off at an hour so early it shouldn't legally exist, and your first thought is simply, again? Already? You blink at the ceiling, trying to piece together basic chronological information. You search your mind for clues, a wardrobe fitting, a rehearsal, a vague memory of someone crying in wardrobe yesterday. That could have been you. Hard to say. Sleep deprivation has dissolved your sense of time like sugar in hot tea. Moments melt together. You'll swear something happened 2 hours ago when it was actually last week, and you'll confidently insist you haven't eaten all day, even as you stare at the empty salad bowl in your hand. Time becomes elastic, stretchy, unpredictable, like a bad improv partner. When you walk across the room, your body feels slightly delayed, as though you're piloting yourself from a remote location that has unreliable Wi-Fi. You reach for your makeup brush and miss it by an inch. You say good morning to someone who replies, "We wrapped for lunch already." You laugh, unsure whether they're joking or you're hallucinating. Sleep-deprived Hollywood isn't glamorous. It's surreal. At some point you find yourself talking to your reflection like it's a colleague you don't fully trust. "We're doing great," you whisper. Your reflection looks back at you like it wants to file an HR report. Your brain no longer produces normal thoughts. Instead, it produces thoughts like, did I ever send that letter? Why does my knee feel emotional? If I close my eyes, will I reopen them sometime in August? Normal reasoning evaporates. You begin treating every surface, couches, chairs, empty corners, suspiciously warm lighting equipment, as a potential nap location. You seriously consider curling up inside the wardrobe rack because the gowns look soft, and at this point, you respect softness the way monks respect holy relics. On set, your exhaustion becomes another character in the scene. You deliver lines in slow motion. You forget which direction to walk. At one point, you confidently stride off camera in the wrong direction, walk straight into a lighting rig, apologize to it, and keep going. The crew just nods, because really, who among them hasn't apologized to an inanimate object this week? Your eyes start doing that unfocused shimmer, as if your eyelashes are buffering. Makeup adds more powder, but powder cannot fix existential lag. People talk to you and you respond automatically, even though your brain is somewhere else entirely, probably lounging on a beach, sipping a cocktail, filing a missing person report about you. Someone asks if you're okay and you say, of course with the hollow optimism of a Victorian ghost who haunts a library but is too polite to complain. But the strangest sleep deprivation symptom isn't physical, it's existential. A soft, dreamy detachment sets in. Everything feels slightly unreal. The set, the scenes, the people, with perfectly curled hair telling you to hit your mark. You feel like you're watching yourself from a balcony seat in an overlong play. You wish the production would cut to intermission so you could lie down on the lobby carpet for 19 minutes. Finally, when the day wraps and you get home, you crawl into bed with the eager desperation of a cat discovering a sunbeam. You bury your face in the pillow, hoping for rest. But sleep doesn't show up right away. It just stands in the doorway, checking its watch, muttering, "Are you sure you're ready for me now?" Your thoughts spin jittery and disobedient. Your pillow whispers promises it cannot keep. You shift, sigh, shift again, and eventually, mercifully, collapse into dreams that feel like badly edited movie trailers. When you wake up, your first words are, "What day is it?" someone answers. You still don't believe them. Because in Hollywood, with no sleep and no time, every day is Tuesday. Every emotion is fragile. And somehow, you keep going anyway. It starts subtly, a passing comment here, a gentle suggestion there. Maybe try sleeping earlier, your manager says, despite the fact that your call time is 4:15 a.m. Maybe avoid crying right before makeup, he adds, as if emotions follow studio scheduling. You nod politely, even though internally you're wondering why your nervous system is being given director's notes like a trainee actor with stage fright. Soon, the suggestions become instructions. Your manager texts you reminders like, "Try to feel calm today," which is exceptionally unhelpful advice, like telling the sun to cool it or asking a toddler to show restraint in a candy store. He wants you to hit emotional marks with the precision of a metronome. Cry here, relax there. Don't think too hard. Think harder than that. Be vulnerable, but also polished, and never, ever get puffy. He hands you a laminated sheet titled Optimal Star Functioning, which outlines things no human should ever have to strategize. Ideal heartbeat ranges, recommended breathing rhythms, the appropriate hydration schedule for the perfect on-camera glow. Section 3 casually recommends half a red devil for early morning jitters, which raises several ethical concerns, none of which the studio acknowledges. Your entire biological existence becomes a collaborative project between people who have not slept since Roosevelt was president. They tweak your sleep like they're adjusting lighting cues. "Can you sleep for fewer hours?" they ask. "You look too rested for this role." Then they add, "but not too few hours. We want tired, not tragic." You begin to suspect that the studio executives view your body the way a mechanic views a vintage car, valuable, high maintenance, and prone to smoke when mishandled. They talk about your endocrine system with the confidence of people who absolutely did not pass biology. "Let's pull back on cortisol," one suggests, waving vaguely at your abdomen. You're not sure how to pull back on a hormone without divine intervention. During meetings, they analyze your facial expressions like football coaches reviewing game footage. You blinked too slowly in that interview. Someone says, "People might think you're overwhelmed." Then someone else counters, "No," blinking quickly makes her look anxious. "Can we get a middle ground blink?" They say this with complete seriousness, as though blink speed is something you can recalibrate with a wrench. Your emotional range becomes a studio-owned asset. They tell you not to get too excited because excitement causes wrinkles. Don't get too sad because sadness causes rumours. Don't get too passionate in interviews because passion confuses the demographic targeting team. You start to wonder if the only acceptable emotion is pleasantly bland. At one point, your manager even attempts to choreograph your panic. "If you're going to feel overwhelmed," he says, "try doing it after filming, but before your meeting with publicity. It photographs better." You stare at him, unsure whether to laugh or silently walk into the ocean. Meanwhile, the red devils sit obediently in your palm, tiny crimson co-workers waiting for direction. Half a pill for charm, your manager says, a whole pill for sincerity, 2 pills for difficult directors. You ask what 3 pills do. He pauses. Let's not find out. On set, everyone acts like your nervous system is another department. Hair, makeup, and neurology. A lighting tech tells you your energy feels too orange. A producer suggests you tone down your heartbeat. A sound guy asks if you can breathe more quietly, because your realistic human breathing is interfering with the mic. You begin to feel like a puppet whose strings run through the entire studio system. They tug gently, constantly, adjusting your emotions, your sleep cycles, your chemical intake. And yet you continue performing, because stopping isn't an option. Hollywood doesn't pause for your sanity. It hands you a pill and asks you to sparkle anyway. But some nights, deep, exhausted nights, as you sit in your dressing room removing lashes that could double as sailboat rigging, you look at yourself in the mirror and think, maybe my nervous system doesn't need notes. Maybe it needs a nap. And maybe, just maybe, it needs to renegotiate its contract. The flashbulbs pop like popcorn kernels threatening to explode. Reporters aren't questions. You answer them. You have no idea what you said. Later, you read headlines and learn you apparently adore lima beans. The red carpet isn't really red. Not in the emotional sense. It's more like stepping onto a long velvet runway that whispers, "Good luck, sweetheart," before swallowing you whole. The second your shoe touches it, you stop being a person and become an event, a spectacle, a moving ornament with cheekbones. The lights hit you first, violent, immediate, blinding. It's like being interrogated by 1,000 tiny suns all shouting, "Smile, smile harder." The flashes flicker so rapidly you start to wonder if time is strobing. Your pupils give up trying to adjust and simply file a complaint with HR. You inch forward, waving like royalty, even though you feel more like a moderately sedated houseplant in formal wear. The red devil you took earlier hums through your bloodstream, smoothing your edges just enough to keep you from panicking, but not enough to stop you from drifting slightly to the left whenever you try to stand still. A reporter lunges toward you with a microphone. "Who are you wearing?" she asks brightly. You stare at her. Who are you wearing? A dress, obviously. But also heels designed by demons, a corset that thinks it's your new landlord, and about 3 pounds of rhinestones fused to your torso. You tell the reporter you're wearing fashion, and she nods solemnly as if you just shared a profound political stance. Another microphone appears. "What's your favourite food?" You panic. Your mind is a scavenger hunt with no clues. The first word that pops into your head is lima beans. You say it with confidence. Later, your publicist tells you that lima beans is the worst possible answer, because no demographic identifies with it. Somewhere mid-carpet, you zone out completely. The world becomes a blur of sequins, velvet ropes, and people yelling your name like they're calling in lost sheep. Smiling starts to feel like manual labour. You can practically hear your cheeks begging for union protection. Photographers shout instructions. Turn left. Turn right. Look mysterious. Look less mysterious. Smile bigger. Stop smiling like that, it's weird. You comply, even though you're 40% sure you're dissociating. The whole carpet has the surreal energy of a lucid dream you didn't choose. You float from interviewer to interviewer like a decorative balloon at a parade. Your co-stars glide beside you, each of you projecting red carpet confidence while secretly clinging to pharmaceutical stability like shipwreck survivors clinging to driftwood. Someone's heel breaks. Someone's eyelash falls off. Someone's rented diamond bracelet snaps and cascades gemstones across the carpet like emotional confetti. All of you continue smiling because the show, of course, must go on. A publicist swoops in every few minutes to whisper urgent nonsense into your ear. Stop blinking so much. Remember to stand up straight. You just told Variety you don't believe in stairs. Please clarify you do believe in stairs. You nod obediently, even though your brain is floating somewhere above your body, sipping chamomile tea and refusing to take responsibility for anything happening below. Then come the candid shots, which are naturally not candid at all. You pose casually, the way no human has ever behaved in the wild. You tilt your head to the perfect angle the studio taught you. You hold your clutch like it contains state secrets. You laugh at nothing, pretending someone told a joke, when in reality you're smiling at the void. By the time the event ends, you feel physically hollowed out, like a glittering jack-o'-lantern with better contouring. Your cheeks ache, your feet hate you, your soul wants soup and silence. Back in the car, you scroll through early press photos. In every picture you look serene, radiant, almost otherworldly, a goddess forged from confidence and careful lighting. But you know the truth. You survive that carpet the way everyone in Hollywood survives it, on adrenaline, muscle memory, and a gentle chemical haze. And tomorrow you'll do it all again, smiling like you meant every second of it. Hollywood gatherings glitter with sequins and deeply troubled sleep cycles. Someone hands you a cocktail, someone else hands you a pill. You briefly consider becoming a pumpkin and rolling away. Parties in Hollywood aren't really parties. They're networking events wearing sequined disguises. From the outside, they look glamorous, camera flashes, gowns that cost as much as a small boat, and champagne fountains bubbling like they're trying to entice you into bankruptcy. But the moment you step inside, the shimmer evaporates, and you realize everyone here is just desperately trying not to fall apart in public. The room smells like perfume, cigarette smoke, and ambition. You walk in wearing your best smile, the one that feels rented. Immediately 3 people descend on you to compliment your dress, which is flattering but also suspicious because they have not yet made eye contact with you. Eyes in Hollywood move automatically toward fabrics, jewelry, and potential publicity moments. Actual faces are optional. A tray drifts by holding goblets of champagne. Another tray follows holding shrimp, although the shrimp looks slightly confused to be here. And then, as always, someone discreetly presses a pill into your hand like they're slipping you a secret message. You don't know if it's a tranquilizer, a stimulant, or something meant to help with creative clarity. At this point, Hollywood medications function like a choose-your-own-adventure book, where all the endings lead to mild dizziness. You thank them and tuck the pill into your purse, where it joins a growing collection of biochemical party favors that probably violate several federal laws. People float from circle to circle, laughing too loudly, hugging too tightly, telling stories that begin with, "You didn't hear this from me." Even the laughter here has a tremor to it, as if the room itself is running on 2 hours of sleep and an unstable relationship with red devils. Every conversation is a performance. Every anecdote is a sales pitch. Every smile is sponsored by a deep, unspoken desire for a nap. A producer corners you near the hors d'oeuvres table and launches into a monologue about a film so groundbreaking it will redefine cinema. He has this exact conversation with 4 other people before the night is over. His tie is crooked. His eyes say he hasn't slept since the Eisenhower administration. Actors mingle around you, all shimmering, breathless, and vaguely translucent, from the combination of exhaustion and champagne. One confesses they haven't eaten a full meal in 2 days because their costume has opinions. Another whispers dramatically that their co-star is only pretending to be sober. A third insists the studio is planning a remake of something that absolutely should not be remade. Every so often, someone glides past on the verge of tears, but it's fine, utterly fine, because they hide it by saying allergies and then sipping champagne like it's emotional Tylenol. You drift through the crowd, smiling, nodding, pretending you aren't slowly dissociating into a decorative chandelier. Your heels ache. Your soul aches. Even your hair, stiff with hairspray, seems to be questioning life choices. You consider slipping into the coat room for a short cry or extended hibernation, but a publicist intercepts you and congratulates you on a fantastic year. You thank them, even though you don't recall what day it is, much less what year. Meanwhile, Marilyn floats through the party like a haunted star, brilliant, flickering, fragile. People gravitate toward her with an intensity that borders on gravitational pull, yet she's alone in a way you can feel across the room. Her smile is a shield. Her laugh is a sigh wearing lipstick. Midway through the night, the champagne fog deepens. The music gets louder. The air thickens with heat and overstimulated nerves. Everyone glows as though sweat is part of their brand. And you? You begin gently fantasizing about lying face down on the carpet for the rest of your life. Maybe forever. Maybe just until someone finds you in the morning and hands you a bagel. When you finally escape into the cool night air, your ears ring, your dress digs into your ribs, and your brain feels like a snow globe that someone shook aggressively for 3 hours. You inhale deeply, letting the quiet wrap around you like a blanket. Hollywood parties sparkle, but the people inside them crack quietly, politely, behind their glasses of champagne. And yet you'll attend the next one, because in this world, survival is social. And sometimes, pretending you're fine is the price of staying visible. You watch Marilyn rehearsing lines with shaky hands, her smile brilliant but brittle. The world wants her to be perfect. She wants to rest. Hollywood wants neither. She sits in the corner of the rehearsal room, script pages fluttering between her fingers like nervous birds trying to escape. Each time her hands tremble, she presses them flat against her lap, as if trying to smooth the anxiety out of her own skin. You've never seen someone try so hard to appear calm. It's like watching a porcelain vase pretend it's made of steel. The room around her buzzes with activity. Assistants running, makeup artists hovering, directors muttering about schedules and lighting. But Marilyn seems separated from all of it by an invisible layer of exhaustion, a bubble, a fragile one. People glance at her with a mixture of awe and impatience. The awe is for the legend she represents. The impatience is for the human she actually is. When she finally stands, it's with the effort of someone lifting an entire world onto their shoulders. Her smile appears, flawless, practiced, an icon etched into her very muscles. But up close, you see how heavy that smile is, how much it asks of her, how much it costs. In the space between breaths, between takes, she looks like someone who hasn't slept in years. You notice the little things, the way she whispers her lines under her breath like a prayer, the way she startles slightly when someone speaks too loudly, the way she wipes the corner of her eye quickly, pretending it's an eyelash, even though you know it's not. The public sees glamour. You see the cracks she desperately tries to fill before anyone notices. When she steps onto the soundstage, the crew straightens, the cameras adjust, and suddenly the air changes, a shift you can feel in your bones. Everyone expects magic. Marilyn delivers magic. She always does. Even on her worst days, her performance glows like a star refusing to burn out. But the moment the director yells cut, the light in her eyes flickers, dims, retreats. Her coach gently reminds her of a line she keeps forgetting. Marilyn nods, but her eyes glaze, the look of someone drowning in expectations far taller than she is. She apologizes. Again. She apologizes the way some people breathe. You want to tell her she doesn't need to. That existing shouldn't require apologies, but in this world existence is a performance, and she's expected to shine even when she's breaking. Between takes, someone hands her another pill, something for her nerves, something for her sleep, something to make the day easier or harder or just tolerable. She swallows it automatically like a ritual she didn't choose but learned anyway. You wonder how many pills she keeps track of. You wonder if she keeps track at all. Every now and then she laughs, a soft, delicate sound that makes everyone turn just to bask in it. For a moment she looks free, young, hopeful, unburdened, but then the moment fades, replaced by a shadow in her eyes that never fully leaves. You see it most clearly when she thinks no one is watching, when she sits alone at the edge of the stage, shoulders slumped, staring at the floor like it holds answers she desperately needs. Her fame is a crown, but it's also a cage, and she knows it. You can feel that knowledge radiating off her like heat. Hollywood asks her to be effortless. The audience asks her to be enchanting. The world asks her to be eternal. But Marilyn is just tired. So very tired. And yet she rises again and again, delivering perfection, because perfection is what they demand. But you see the truth. Behind every iconic moment is a woman straining under the unbearable weight of being everyone's fantasy except her own. One day, the world will call her a legend. But right now, she's just a human being, trembling, smiling, trying so hard. At some point you start taking them before you're even tired, or stressed, or thinking, just because stopping seems scarier than continuing. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no dramatic turning point, no thunderclap, no ominous music cue. Red devils just slip quietly into the rhythm of your day, like a new background singer you didn't hire, but who somehow knows all the harmonies. One morning, you pop one without hesitation, not because you need it, but because it's simply what you do now. A reflex, muscle memory, like breathing, or apologizing to your publicist for existing. You tell yourself it's precautionary, prevention, emotional insurance. A pill a day keeps the panic away, except now it's 2 a day, then 3, then 1 in your pocket just in case. Though you know the case will arrive the moment someone asks you to hold eye contact for too long. Soon you stop checking whether you're taking them for a reason. You take them because the idea of not taking them feels like removing an emotional seatbelt midair. Safety first, you whisper to yourself, even as the pills slowly reshape the architecture of your brain. You start noticing gaps, tiny, unsettling blank spaces where memories should be. You'll find yourself standing in your dressing room holding a script you don't remember picking up, or staring at a half-eaten apple with no recollection of biting it, or replying absolutely to a question you didn't hear because you were floating 2 inches outside your body, observing yourself like a mildly judgmental ghost. People compliment your calmness. They call you so grounded, unaware that you feel less grounded and more like a helium balloon tied loosely to a folding chair. You drift through conversations, gently bumping into the edges of reality. Your laugh grows softer, your reactions slower, your thoughts fuzzy around the edges like a photograph smudged by thumbprints. At first it feels peaceful, like someone turned the volume down on your life, but peace slowly sours into numbness, and numbness into something more complicated. You start missing yourself, missing thoughts that felt sharp, missing emotions that arrived clearly rather than leaking in from the corners like faint radio static. But stopping isn't simple. Every time you think about skipping a dose, your heart clenches with an unfamiliar primal fear. What if the stress comes back? What if you break down in public? What if you disappoint someone? What if the version of you underneath the pills isn't enough? Hollywood reinforces the spiral. People praise your productivity, your relaxed energy, your lack of drama. You've never been so easy to manage. Meanwhile, your inner world becomes a quiet room with the lights dimmed, not scary, but eerily blank. A place where nothing hurts, but also nothing blooms. You tell yourself it's fine. You're fine. Everyone here does it. Except deep down, a quieter voice whispers something uncomfortable. You don't know who you are without them. Sometimes, Late at night, you try skipping your dose, just to test your own edges. But as soon as the anxiety rises, sharp, breathless, alive, you panic. You swallow a pill to smother it. The relief is immediate, warm, familiar, and laced with guilt. You start seeing the same pattern in other actors. The glassy eyes, the dreamy pauses, the smiles that don't quite reach the soul. Hollywood praises performance, but ignores the cost of maintaining it. You're all just ducks gliding smoothly across the surface while your feet paddle frantically underwater, except now the paddling is medicated, softened, blurred. Eventually you begin to suspect the truth. The Red Devils aren't helping you cope with Hollywood. They're helping you cope with how Hollywood has reshaped you. And once you realise that, stopping becomes even harder. Not because you can't, but because you're afraid of who you'll be when the fog lifts. Still, in brief moments, fleeting sparks of clarity, you feel something inside you stirring, a longing for genuine rest, a desire for a life not measured in dosages, a tiny stubborn ember that refuses to die out. One day, maybe, it will be strong enough to guide you back to yourself, but for now you take another pill, breathe out slowly and keep moving through the dream-like haze. Because spiraling is easier when it feels soft. You try dating, but it's hard when both of you fall asleep halfway through dinner, face down in a pasta you don't remember ordering. Romance becomes complicated when neither of you can stay conscious long enough to form a complete sentence. You meet someone on set, charming, talented, with cheekbones so sharp they could slice bread, and for a brief moment you feel a flicker of possibility, a little candle flame of connection. But then the studio schedules you both for 14-hour days and prescribes matching Red Devil regimes, and suddenly your courtship looks less like Hollywood glamour and more like two exhausted raccoons sharing a trash can. Your first official date happens at an Italian place with dim lighting and chairs that look aggressively uncomfortable. You sit across from each other, smiling politely, your eyelids drooping like wilting houseplants. The waiter asks what you'd like, and neither of you can remember a single food that exists. You eventually order the pasta, which is not a dish, but you don't realise that until it arrives. Halfway through telling him about your day, your head dips forward and lands gently in your plate. He nods sympathetically, even as his own forehead begins drifting downward like a majestic slow-motion shipwreck. The two of you doze there for a moment, two beautiful disasters resting in a puddle of marinara, until the waiter wakes you with the pitying concern usually reserved for lost children. You try again a few nights later. You go for a walk hand in hand, both of you swaying slightly from side effects. Streetlights blur around the edges. Everything feels soft, like the world is wrapped in a thin layer of cotton. You talk about your dreams, not your actual dreams, which you haven't had in weeks, because the Red Devils knock your subconscious out cold, but the ones you remember wanting before Hollywood turned your schedule into a puzzle with missing pieces. But then one of you starts slurring your words, the other begins blinking in slow intervals, like a malfunctioning lighthouse. Soon you're sitting on a bench, leaning against each other for stability. A couple passing by gives you a sympathetic look, assuming you're drunk. Little do they know you're merely two over-medicated artists trying to express affection without collapsing. The emotional part of the relationship doesn't fare much better. It's hard to argue when both of you forget what you're fighting about. It's hard to be vulnerable when your feelings have been smoothed down by pharmaceuticals into a single, lukewarm sensation labelled fine. Passion becomes a visiting relative. You know it exists, but you never see it anymore. Conversations drift like soft clouds. Apologies float upward and disappear. Sometimes your partner tries to have a serious discussion about the future, and midway through, you realise you haven't heard a word they said because you were busy concentrating on keeping your left eye open. They don't take it personally. They're equally sedated. The two of you sit together in a peaceful, chemically induced trance. silently acknowledging that neither is fully present. And yet, there are moments, little glimmers, fleeting sparks when the haze lifts just enough for something real to shine through. Maybe it happens when you share a blanket between takes, or when they whisper a joke that makes you laugh so hard you momentarily wake up. Maybe it's the gentle way they brush a curl from your forehead, or the sleepy smile they give you before collapsing onto your shoulder like a tranquilized koala. Those moments remind you why you're trying, why connection still matters, even in a world that dulls everything sharp and slows everything bright. But love in Hollywood isn't nourished by stolen moments alone. It needs attention, intention, time, all things that vanish quickly when you're juggling fame, exhaustion, and enough sedatives to tranquilize a minor deity. One night, as you lie together in a foggy half-sleep, their hand in yours, you realize the truth. You aren't just dating each other. You're dating each other's exhaustion, prescriptions, schedules, public images, and anxious shadows. And somehow, despite everything, you still want to try again tomorrow. They demand realism from someone currently operating at 40% consciousness. If you cry too easily, they say you're unprofessional. If you don't cry at all, they ask if you're on something. You are. Everyone is. Working with a Hollywood director is a bit like being guided through an emotional obstacle course designed by someone who believes sleep is a conspiracy theory. They stand in the centre of the soundstage with a look of operatic intensity, as if the fate of civilization hinges on whether you deliver this line with slightly more yearning. Meanwhile, you're just trying to remember if you've already blinked today. You step onto your mark. The director squints at you like an owl trying to identify a distant mouse. "I need vulnerability," he says. Raw, honest vulnerability. You nod, even though your current emotional palette consists of mild confusion, chronic fatigue, and the vague desire for soup. "Action," he shouts, and you attempt to summon something meaningful from the foggy depths of your sedated brain. A single tear forms. But because of the red devil still strolling leisurely through your system, the tear takes approximately 7 hours to travel down your cheek. When it finally reaches your jaw, the director throws his hands in the air. No, too dramatic, too dramatic. The tear that moved at the pace of tectonic plates was too dramatic. He resets the scene. This time, you try the opposite. No crying, nothing. A calm, serene detachment, almost spiritual. You deliver the line with zen-like quiet. The director stares at you in horror. Are you on something? You want to respond, "Yes, of course I am." "You're the reason." But you simply smile politely because this is Hollywood, and polite smiling is mandatory even when your soul is trying to resign. Between takes, the director paces like a caged tiger. He mutters things to himself that sound like half poetry, half incoherent riddles. She needs to be fragile but strong, but also weak, but luminous collapse beautifully. You're expected to decode this emotional Rubik's Cube in real time, despite the fact that your cognitive abilities currently resemble warm oatmeal. He pulls you aside. He whispers dramatically, "Dig deeper." You want to tell him that there is no deeper. You're at the deepest your chemically softened consciousness can go. Any deeper, and you might slip into the Earth's mantle. But you nod, because nodding is safer than explaining neurology. When you fail to produce whatever nebulous feeling he's hunting for, he brings up the method. He suggests you tap into personal memories, childhood losses, past heartbreaks, spiritual crises. Meanwhile, all you're actually feeling is the desperate need to nap in the nearest prop chair. He asks for anguish. You give him something approximating mild disappointment. He asks for longing. You give him the face you make when you smell coffee. He asks for rage. You give him an expression that looks like you misplaced your keys. None of it satisfies him. Then, bizarrely, there are moments when you are perfect. You trip over a line because your shoe heel caught on an imaginary speck of dust, and suddenly the director gasps, clutches his chest and whispers, That is truth. Truth. You nearly fell on your face, and apparently that is cinematic gold. He insists on 27 additional takes, hoping you'll replicate the accidental brilliance. But you can't. You're now too self-aware, too conscious of your own elbows, too distracted by the growing suspicion that sleep might be a myth invented by mattress companies. By hour 14, your emotional range has collapsed entirely. The director continues pushing, sculpting, demanding, chasing some intangible spark you left behind at breakfast. He tells you to trust the moment, but you no longer trust anything. Not your instincts, not your balance, not the red devil still slow dancing with your neurons. Finally he yells, "Cut! We got it!" Everyone exhales. You have no idea what you just filmed. Your brain has already deleted the footage. But the director looks triumphantly relieved, as though he personally saved cinema. And as you walk off set, ankles throbbing, eyes half closed, nerves fried like carnival snacks, you realise directors don't want realism. They want emotional fireworks from actors carrying half-empty batteries, and somehow, impossibly, you give it to them. Your press team spins stories like cotton candy, airy, sweet, and completely fake. Meanwhile, your red devils are working the night shift to keep you camera ready. Publicity meetings always begin the same way, with 3 publicists smiling at you like kindergarten teachers preparing to explain why glue is not for eating. They usher you into a conference room filled with posters of your own face, versions of you that look suspiciously awake. You sit, blinking slowly, still half dissolved from last night's red devil, and your team claps their hands together as if announcing news of national importance. "Okay," your head publicist chirps. "We need to fix your entire image." You take a sip of water. You have no idea what your image currently is. The team launches into updates, speaking in the rapid, caffeinated cadence of people who have not experienced silence since 1942. "We're adjusting your narrative," one announces proudly. "You're not tired. You're mysteriously serene. You're not overwhelmed. You're enigmatic. And you absolutely did not fall asleep in that reporter's lap." That was performance art. Another publicist slides a binder toward you. It is thick enough to qualify as a weapon. Inside are talking points, emergency responses, pre-approved anecdotes, and several versions of your favourite hobbies, none of which you recall doing. They've decided you enjoy bird-watching, painting, and quiet evenings at home, despite your schedule involving approximately 0 evenings at home, and even fewer quiet moments. "We've also updated your answers for personal questions," someone adds. "Last month you didn't know whether you liked hiking, so we've decided you love it now." Very relatable, very approachable. "Also, you're allergic to mangoes. You blink. You're 80% certain you're not allergic to mangoes. Too late. Publicity has spoken." Meanwhile, your red devil is just beginning its gentle work, softening your edges, smoothing your reactions, turning your brain into a slow-moving river under moonlight. You nod earnestly while they discuss the version of you that will be released to the public like a carefully engineered butterfly. Then they reveal the headlines the studio helped shape. You apparently love early mornings, a lie. You adore lima beans, an accident-turned-campaign. You rarely feel stressed, a deeply concerning lie. You're considering writing a book, you're not. And mysteriously, you've always dreamed of starring in the exact film the studio wants you to promote. Coincidence? Absolutely not. After the meeting, you're whisked to a magazine interview conducted by a journalist who looks half bewildered, half impressed by your serene, slightly floaty demeanour. You answer questions by reciting what your publicist drilled into you, even though the red devil has slowed your thoughts to the speed of a polite elevator. "How do you stay so balanced?" the interviewer asks. You smile dreamily and say something vague about gratitude, sunlight, and embracing my truth, even though your truth right now is that you'd like to lie down on the studio floor and take a 17-minute nap. They scribble enthusiastically, convinced they have uncovered your spiritual philosophy. Later, the photoshoot begins, a carefully curated event designed to create the illusion of natural candor while being the least natural experience imaginable. You pose in outfits you cannot breathe in, holding props you've never touched in real life. Someone tells you to look effortless but determined, which is a confusing emotional combo, but you give it your best shot. Your publicists hover nearby like excited parrots. That's it. More confidence, less existential dread in the eyes. You try, truly, but your eyes are doing whatever they want now. By the time you're done, your brand has been shaped, polished, manipulated, buffed, sprayed, softened, sharpened, and rewritten. The public will learn all about you, the fictional you, the charming you, the strategically curated you, and they'll adore it. They'll discuss your quotes online, they'll share your photos, they'll decide they know you. But the real you, that person is sitting quietly beneath the layers of studio-approved mythology, holding a tiny red devil in one hand and wondering, when was the last time I told my own story? And the answer, of course, is simple. Not in a very long time. America loves a scandal, but not when it implicates their favourite celebrities. Studios quietly solve problems by burying evidence under contracts and hope. The pattern is familiar. A whisper here, a rumour there, and suddenly the whole country is clutching its pearls over something they absolutely were not supposed to know about. The public devours scandal with the enthusiasm of a kid tasting sugar for the first time, wide-eyed, messy, unstoppable. But when the scandal points back to Hollywood's shiniest stars, that's when the delicate dance begins. It starts with a leak. A columnist hints that an unnamed actress looked unsteady at an event. A radio host speculates about health issues. Someone in a diner whispers, "I heard she fainted on set," to someone who absolutely should not have heard that. Within hours, the rumours evolve like a particularly gossipy Pokemon. But the studios are prepared. They always are. They move quickly, gracefully, almost theatrically, sweeping in like elegant janitors cleaning up emotional debris. First, they issue a statement insisting everything is fine. So fine. More than fine. Their star is resting, recharging, or taking time to focus on exciting new projects, all of which translate to "we are scrambling, please look away." If the rumours persist, the studio deploys Phase 2, strategic distraction. Suddenly your face appears in magazines paired with glowing headlines about your latest charity work. A carefully staged photo surfaces of you smiling, petting a puppy that definitely wasn't there 5 minutes earlier. A journalist receives exclusive access to your set, an event that, coincidentally, coincides with the rising speculation about your worsening sleep schedule. When that doesn't work, Phase 3 begins: containment. Lawyers descend like well-dressed hawks. Contracts are reviewed. Secrecy becomes the word of the hour, written into every clause, underlined twice, whispered under breath. Confidentiality agreements multiply like rabbits. People who saw things they shouldn't have, like you stumbling, slurring, shaking, or drifting off mid-sentence, are invited to sign paperwork with pens that cost more than their monthly rent. Meanwhile, internal memos circulate at the studio. They read like instructions for smoothing the surface of a very turbulent lake. Do not discuss her sleep regimen. Avoid referencing medication. Emphasize her professionalism. Under no circumstances mention red devils. Behind closed doors, executives pace, muttering about brand integrity and public image. But publicly, they smile serenely, insisting there is no cause for alarm, despite the fact that everyone on set has watched you drift through scenes like a beautifully costumed ghost. When America begins to speculate too loudly, the studios pivot again, Moral panic mode. Suddenly, the blame shifts. If a star falters, the fault must lie anywhere except the system itself. Headlines appear blaming modern stresses, change in values, even dietary deficiencies. Studio doctors are quoted saying things like, "Sleep issues are normal in dedicated artists, which means nothing and solves less." If the whispers threaten to turn into shouting, a sacrificial lamb is selected. A manager is fired, a stylist is blamed. A distant assistant you've met twice is abruptly rebranded as the problem. The public sighs with relief. A villain has been named, the narrative is saved, order returns. Meanwhile, the real issues, the pills, the pressure, the exhaustion so deep it scrapes the bone, remain untouched. Hollywood has always been skilled at misdirection. It's an industry built on illusions, after all. So when a star struggles, the machine doesn't repair the system that caused the collapse. It simply hides the damage behind brighter lights and louder applause, and you watch it all unfold from within your chemically softened fog, knowing how fragile the truth is, how vulnerable you are, how quickly a rumour can turn into a legend or a weapon. Yet the public rarely sees the cover-ups. They see only the polished version, the smiling photos, the reassuring statements, the miraculous recovery story crafted from thin air and panic. They believe it because they want to, because the illusion comforts them, because it's easier to love a star when you pretend they never fall. But you do fall, you just fall quietly, and Hollywood rushes in, not to catch you, but to make sure no one notices the sound. You see her slipping, smiling less, attending fewer rehearsals, clutching her pill bottle like a misplaced heartbeat. Everyone whispers, but no one intervenes. It creeps in slowly at first. A missed call time here, a delayed entrance there. Things that could happen to anyone. Things that should worry someone. But in Hollywood, worry is considered inconvenient, a disruption to the schedule, a wrinkle in the carefully ironed narrative. So instead of reaching out, people whisper, they tilt their heads, they share concerned glances that dissolve the moment the director walks by. Marilyn arrives later each day, wrapped in a silence that wasn't there before. She moves gently, as if her bones have become fragile things trying not to break under the weight of her own exhaustion. You notice her eyes, once bright, once shimmering with that strange magnetic mixture of innocence and ambition, now dimming around the edges. The spark is still there, but it flickers like a candle trying to survive a draft. When she rehearses, her voice trembles. When she smiles, it looks like muscle memory rather than joy. She nods when people speak to her, but her focus drifts. Her thoughts seem to hover just out of reach, floating somewhere above her head like delicate balloons she's too tired to pull back down. The pill bottle becomes her shadow. You see her grip it tightly when she thinks no one notices. Red devils rattle like tiny warnings each time she opens it. She takes them with the quiet urgency of someone trying to hold herself together in the only way she knows how. There are days when her hands shake so visibly that she presses them into her skirts to hide the tremors. But Hollywood is built on pretending. She pretends she's fine. Everyone else pretends to believe her. Executives start circling like nervous birds. They debate her reliability, her marketability, her stability. None of them discuss her humanity. They worry about deadlines, not breakdowns. They worry about profits, not people. In meetings, they say things like, "She just needs rest," which is ironic because they're the very reason she hasn't truly rested in years. Her co-stars speak of her gently, but with distance, the way people speak about someone they love but feel helpless to save. She's sensitive, they say. She's under a lot of pressure. They talk around the problem, never into it. No one wants to be the one who says aloud what everyone feels in their ribs. She's unraveling. On set, Marilyn tries. God, she tries. She shows up with determination stitched into every step. But the fatigue clings to her like a second skin. Lines slip away. Emotions fray. Even the red devils can't mask the bone-deep weariness anymore. They only blur its edges. She apologizes constantly, unnecessarily, heartbreakingly. Every apology sounds like an echo of all the ways Hollywood has asked her to be more than human. There are moments, brief and fragile, when she laughs. The real laugh. The one that lights a room. It reminds everyone of who she is beneath the persona. But the laugh vanishes quickly, like a bright bird startled back into hiding. Her final days on set feel surreal. The air grows heavy, as though the universe itself senses the unraveling of something luminous. You watch her walk away after a scene, shoulders slightly hunched, as if her body has finally admitted what her industry refused to acknowledge. She is tired beyond measure. Someone murmurs, "She'll bounce back." Someone else replies, "She always does." But you feel the truth deep in your chest. She's not bouncing anymore. She's barely holding on. Meanwhile, the whispers thicken. They settle into corners, ride the wind between trailers, linger in dressing rooms. But whispers don't save people. Action does, and no one takes action. Hollywood is a place where legends are born, but it is also a place where legends crack quietly, politely, beneath impossible expectations. You see Marilyn slipping, and you know in a soft, mournful way that the world won't understand the depth of her struggle until it's too late. And when the news eventually breaks, the world will gasp. They will mourn. They will wonder how it happened. They will ask why no one helped. But you will know, because you were there, watching a star fade, not because she wasn't brilliant, but because she burned too brightly for too long. As Marilyn struggles, publicists scramble, studios shrug, and doctors prescribe more and more. Because nothing says healthcare like doubling the dosage. Hollywood panic is a special kind of panic, not loud, not chaotic, but quiet and very well dressed. It doesn't run or scream, it glides, it whispers, it schedules emergency meetings at 7 a.m. and serves pastries no one is allowed to eat. The whole system enters a strange, synchronized denial dance, a pirouette of urgency paired with a graceful refusal to acknowledge reality. The publicists are the first to leap into action. They assemble in a war room plastered with photos of Marilyn looking radiant and alive, strategically chosen, of course, so no one has to stare at the truth too long. They talk in hushed tones about public perception and narrative cohesion, all while frantically drafting statements that say absolutely nothing. Their plan? Tell everyone she's fine. Fine has become Hollywood's favourite adjective. Vague, soothing, non-committal. Fine means we are panicking, but please don't. Meanwhile, the studio executives sit around a long mahogany table pretending to be calm. They exchange empty reassurances like, "She just needs rest and will push filming by a day if needed." These are lies. They know they are lies. Everyone at the table knows they are lies. But Hollywood isn't built on honesty. It's built on hope, illusion, and contracts thick enough to stun a bear. Every now and then, someone suggests getting Marilyn real help. A therapist, maybe. A break. A weekend away. But the idea is battered aside like an inconvenient gnat buzzing near a chandelier. "We can't risk delays," an executive mutters. "Besides, she has a doctor." Ah, yes. The doctor. The doctor whose coat pockets jingle like a candy jar because he carries enough barbiturates to sedate an elephant. The doctor who smiles warmly, listens poorly, and prescribes generously. His solution to Marilyn's decline? More pills. Always more pills. If one isn't working, two will. If two aren't working, three might. And if three aren't working well, at that point he starts quoting medical philosophy that sounds suspiciously like horoscope readings. He calls his approach holistic. It is not holistic. It is chemical enthusiasm. Around them, the entire production space hums with anxious energy. Assistants whisper in hallways. Costume designers sew in fretful silence. Makeup artists apply extra powder over Marilyn's trembling cheeks and pretend not to notice the tremor. Crew members trade rumors like baseball cards. She looked tired. She missed rehearsal. She seemed confused. But nobody says the thing they're all thinking. She needs help, not handling. Instead, they handle her. They cushion her. They steer her gently through the day like she's made of spun glass. They adjust lighting to flatter her fatigue. They edit scripts to minimize her exertion. They rewrite scenes, not because the story needs it, but because Marilyn does. And the machine must keep running, always running. Behind the scenes, the panic sharpens. Publicists develop contingency plans. Studio heads have closed-door conversations with increasingly tight jawlines. Managers pace like cats in a thunderstorm. Everyone is scrambling to maintain the illusion, to preserve the fantasy of Hollywood perfection. But through it all, there's one thing no one directly confronts. Marilyn is unraveling. And yet she's still expected to sparkle, to smile, to deliver, to carry the burden of being America's dream girl even as her own dreams collapse under exhaustion and chemistry. You watch all of this unfold, the whispers, the worry, the carefully constructed lies, and you feel a strange, heavy ache settle into your chest. Because the truth is so clear, so visible, you could reach out and touch it. Hollywood doesn't panic to save the person. It panics to save the illusion. And even now, as the real woman suffers, the machine spins, the cameras roll, the publicity team drafts a statement about resilience, and the doctor shakes another pill into her palm with a reassuring nod. Everything's fine, they insist. You know it isn't. They know it isn't. But in Hollywood, pretending is easier than admitting the truth. And so the performance goes on. You lie in bed, heartbeat slow, eyelids heavy, wondering how something meant to help you feels more like an anchor pulling you under. Sleep used to be a gentle thing, an invitation, a soft descent, a quiet drifting. Now it feels like a negotiation with forces you can't quite name. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for rest to arrive the way you once waited for a bus. Uncertain, mildly anxious, vaguely aware it might not show up at all. The red devil you took is doing its work, but it doesn't feel like help anymore. It feels like surrender. A slow, sinking weight in your limbs, heavier at the edges, turning your body into something soft and still. You try to breathe deeply, but even that takes effort. Every inhale feels like lifting sandbags. Every exhale floats away like it doesn't belong to you. Your thoughts blur. They don't disappear, they smear, like watercolour left in the rain. You know you're tired, bone tired, soul tired. But beneath that exhaustion is something sharper. Panic. A quiet, trembling panic that maybe you've crossed an invisible line. That maybe sleep is no longer rest, but retreat. The room around you hums gently. The dim lamp in the corner creates a soft halo across your blankets. It should feel safe, calm, cozy, warm. Instead, it feels like a stage set. A replica of a resting place rather than the real thing. You roll onto your side seeking comfort, but the sheets feel foreign, unfamiliar, as if borrowed from a hotel you don't remember checking into. You close your eyes, hoping darkness will soothe you. Instead, your mind drifts into strange half-dreams, disjointed images, unfinished sentences, blurry shapes that dissolve when you try to look directly at them. It's the red devil Haze again, pulling you down but not quite in, a limbo state between consciousness and oblivion. Your heart begins beating in odd little rhythms like it's tapping on your ribs to get your attention. You place a hand over your chest, feeling the slow thud. Too slow, too heavy, too deliberate. It feels less like a heartbeat and more like a metronome marking time for an internal performance you didn't audition for. The fear builds quietly. Not dramatic fear, not gasping or sweating. Just a hollow ache in your chest. A sense that something isn't right. That sleep shouldn't feel like drowning in velvet. That rest shouldn't require pharmaceuticals with tiny devilish names. You think about how it started. One pill for exhaustion, one for nerves, one because everyone else was taking them. You think about how normal it all seemed, how encouraged, how expected. Hollywood doesn't warn you about the slope until you're already sliding down it. And tonight, as the room tilts softly, you feel yourself reaching the steepest part. You lie there, gripping the sheets lightly, trying to anchor yourself to something real. You focus on the sensation of fabric under your fingertips, the faint hum of a refrigerator in the next room, the distant sound of a car passing on the street, a reminder that the world outside keeps moving, even when you feel stuck in place. You tell yourself to stay calm, to breathe slowly, to hold on. Eventually, exhaustion wins. It always does. Your body sinks deeper into the mattress. Your limbs go warm, numb, distant. Your thoughts turn into soft murmurs drifting out to sea. Sleep finally comes, but not gently. It arrives like a tide pulling you under, slow and inevitable. And in that final flicker of awareness before unconsciousness claims you, a chilling realization washes over you. You're no longer trying to fall asleep. You're trying not to disappear into it. Because somewhere along the way, rest became a battle. And tonight, even winning feels a little like losing. Tragedy finally forces Hollywood to look in the mirror. Unfortunately, they spend more time adjusting their hair than fixing the problem. There's a peculiar hush that settles over Hollywood whenever tragedy strikes. A hush that isn't reverence so much as confusion. It hangs low in the air, heavy and shimmering, like fog that's not entirely sure where to land. People walk slower, they talk softer. They make sympathetic faces at one another in hallways, even though no one knows what to do with the sympathy once it's been offered. The phone lines buzz, publicists pace, executives gather around conference tables with expressions so grave you'd think someone just told them popcorn sales were down. They say things like, "We need to be sensitive and we have to handle this delicately," which in Hollywood language translates to, "We need to look devastated without admitting any responsibility whatsoever." Someone suggests issuing a statement. Of course they do. Hollywood loves statements. The longer, vaguer, and more poetic, the better. They draft paragraphs that say nothing with tremendous sincerity. "We're heartbroken. We stand together in this difficult time. We will continue her legacy." The words flow beautifully but float like helium balloons. Light, colourful, completely untethered from reality. Meanwhile, the studio arranges a moment of silence after hair and makeup, because cameras will be present and grief, apparently, needs good lighting. Executives rehearse their sombre nods in the mirror, adjusting their expressions to achieve the perfect ratio of sadness to photo readiness. Someone suggests a tribute. Another suggests a documentary. Someone else strongly suggests that maybe, just maybe, they should address the conditions that led to this tragedy. That person is politely ignored. Because reckoning in Hollywood is mostly theoretical. They acknowledge the cracks, then apply fresh paint. They speak solemnly about learning lessons, but the lessons rarely graduate beyond the brainstorming stage. Meetings are held to discuss change, but no one brings the right pens. Committees are formed, then forgotten. Initiatives are launched, then quietly abandoned when the next blockbuster demands attention. While the machine murmurs about reform, nothing stops. The schedules stay full. The call sheets keep printing. Actors still arrive at dawn, bleary-eyed and brittle, holding coffee in one hand and pharmaceuticals in the other. The show must go on, not because it should, but because Hollywood doesn't know how to stop. Journalists swarm, hungry for answers. Some ask hard questions, but the responses are soft, evasive, cotton candy clouds of corporate regret. A few articles criticize the system outright, but they are swiftly overshadowed by coverage of a celebrity feud or a new fragrance launch. The cultural attention span snaps back to its default setting, distracted. Yet beneath the noise, something lingers, an unease, a shadow, a quiet recognition that something in the industry is fundamentally broken. People whisper about the pressure, the pills, the sleeplessness, but only behind closed doors, as if saying it too loudly might cause the truth to spill across the walk of fame like a cracked water main. A studio doctor retires abruptly. A manager steps down citing stress. A producer is reassigned to a different project to reset priorities. No one says why. No one connects the dots. Hollywood doesn't connect dots, it scatters them artistically and calls it a constellation. You watch it all unfold from the sidelines, floating through grief and exhaustion, the memory of Marilyn's unraveling still imprinted behind your eyes. The emptiness she left behind hums quietly under everything. You wonder if this time will be different, if the industry will finally listen, finally soften, finally protect its brightest stars instead of polishing them until they crack. But days pass, then weeks. The whispers fade, new headlines appear. The machine warms up again, gears turning, lights buzzing, script circulating. A fresh face arrives on set, young, hopeful, shimmering with dreams. People smile at her, they compliment her glow. They tell her she's destined for greatness, and deep down, a chill trickles through you. Because you've seen this story. You've lived the parts they don't photograph, and you know the truth that Hollywood refuses to print on its billboards. Reckoning is easy, change is hard, and in this town, the mirror cracks long before anyone fixes the reflection. Survivors look back at their pill bottles like tiny red ghosts of a past life, reminders of how close they came to losing themselves entirely. Healing, in Hollywood, never looks the way you expect it to. It doesn't begin with dramatic revelations or triumphant speeches or a sudden determination to turn things around. It begins quietly, softly, in the stillness that follows chaos, the kind of stillness that feels almost suspicious, like the world is holding its breath and waiting to see what you'll do next. You sit on the edge of your bed, staring at the empty red devil bottle, like it's an artifact excavated from an archaeological dig, ancient, ominous, humming with secrets. The label is faded, the cap is cracked, but you remember exactly how it felt in your palm. You remember how easy it was to open. You remember the strange comfort of its tiny weight, how it promised peace even as it carved away pieces of you. Around you, the room feels different now, brighter, airier. The light filters through the curtains in a way that doesn't feel accusatory. Your bed looks like a place for rest again, not a staging ground for survival. And yet, your hands tremble slightly as you place the bottle into a drawer, not to hide it, but to mark the ending of a chapter that nearly swallowed you. Everyone who makes it through looks like this, worn around the edges, quietly changed, stitched together with invisible threads. The survivors don't celebrate, they don't toast, they don't suddenly become whole. They move gently like people getting reacquainted with their own shadows after years of standing under two bright lights. You find yourself noticing things you'd forgotten could matter. The softness of a pillow, the warmth of morning sun, The feeling of taking a breath that belongs entirely to you. Healing isn't glamorous. It doesn't have theme music. It's slow and fragile and sometimes confusing. You feel both lighter and strangely hollow, like someone emptied your pockets while leaving your clothes neatly folded. The studio rarely acknowledges this stage. Healing doesn't test well with audiences, it's not marketable, so they move on quickly, shifting their attention to newer stars and fresher narratives. But those who lived through the Red Devil era, they carry their scars quietly, tucked beneath couture gowns and flawless makeup, hidden in the delicate tremor of a hand reaching for a glass of water. You meet others who've come through, people whose names once shimmered on billboards. They speak softly when they speak at all. They share knowing looks, not pity, recognition. A kind of unspoken fellowship among those who've danced too close to the glittering machinery and returned singed but standing. Some show their scars openly. They talk about what happened, about the pills and the pressure, and the terrifying sense of drifting away from yourself. Others bury it deep, preferring to move forward without stirring old ghosts. There is no right choice. Trauma is a tailor. It custom fits itself differently to everyone. As time passes, you begin reconstructing a life that isn't built on exhaustion and panic. You rediscover the things that once brought you joy, small things, bright things, a warm drink, a walk at dusk, a conversation that isn't being recorded or rehearsed. For the first time in years, you feel something like clarity, something like truth, something like yourself. But even as you heal, the memories linger, not to haunt you, but to remind you, to keep you tender, to keep you honest. When you see new actors on set full of promise and sparkle, you watch them with protective caution. You recognize the look in their eyes, hope, hunger, innocence. You silently pray the industry is kinder to them than it was to you. And then there are the nights, the quiet nights when you open a drawer and accidentally brush against that old bottle. The plastic feels cold, empty, a ghost of what almost consumed you. You close the drawer gently, not in fear, but in gratitude, because you walked away from it, because you learned where the edge was, because you didn't fall past it. Your scars don't define you, but they do remember you. And in a place built on illusions, remembering is its own kind of victory. Slowly, you claw your way back into genuine rest, real sleep, not chemically negotiated. You open your eyes one morning and for once, the world feels possible instead of blurry. Waking up feels different now. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just quietly astonishing. Your eyes open without resistance, without that heavy drag of barbiturates pulling them back down. The room is still the same soft rectangle of morning light and tangled blankets. But you are different. You're present in a way you haven't been in years, as if some fog in your chest has finally lifted enough for sunlight to slip through. You lie still, afraid to move too quickly. Genuine rest feels delicate, like a newly formed butterfly perched on your shoulder. You inhale, slow and deep, half expecting the familiar chemical aftertaste of forced sleep. But your breath is clean, quiet, unmedicated. You feel awake, truly awake. A small miracle disguised as an ordinary morning. The first few steps you take are strange, like you're relearning gravity. Your limbs feel lighter, less waterlogged. Your thoughts, once sluggish and tangled, now drift through your mind with gentle clarity. They don't sprint, they don't crash, they simply arrive, soft and understandable, like visitors who actually knocked before entering. In the kitchen, you stare at a cup of coffee as if it's an old friend you're reconnecting with after years of miscommunication. You sip it slowly, waiting for your nerves to riot. They don't. Instead, the warmth spreads evenly through you, steadying, not scrambling. You'd forgotten coffee could feel nice instead of catastrophic. The world outside seems different too, not brighter exactly, but sharper. Edges have returned to things that once seemed blurred. Colours feel deeper, sounds feel clearer. Even your reflection looks more like a person and less like a hologram flickering under bad lighting. There's life behind your eyes again, not the frantic, jittery flicker of stimulants, but the grounded hum of someone who might actually be okay. Healing doesn't happen all at once, though. Some days you slip backward. Some nights your thoughts spin too fast and your fingers hover over the drawer where old bottles sit quietly like sleeping wolves. But each time you pull your hand back, gently, firmly, because you've started learning the difference between coping and numbing, and the difference matters more than you ever understood. You make small choices that feel impossibly brave, going to bed without a pill, letting yourself cry without calling it weakness, turning down a role that demands too much of you, saying no without apologizing afterwards. You rediscover the quiet pleasures of slowness, the way fresh air feels when it touches your face, the sound of pages turning in a book, the soothing repetition of watering a plant and watching it reach toward the sun. Hollywood worships speed, but healing honors stillness. You're learning to trust the stillness again, and people notice. Not immediately. Hollywood rarely notices subtle things, but eventually someone tilts their head and says, "You seem lighter." Another says, "You look rested." Your publicist nearly cries from relief because your interviews stop sounding like dream sequences. Even directors soften around you, as if sensing that something within you has quietly rerouted. You begin laughing more, real laughter, not the brittle, airless kind you used to give reporters. You begin dreaming again, actual dreams, not pharmacological hallucinations. And in your dreams, you're not running or falling or drifting. You're simply living, standing, breathing, being. Slowly, the city that once drained you begins to feel navigable. Not safe. Hollywood is never safe, but livable. You walk through it not as a fragile silhouette held together by pills and pressure, but as someone reassembling themselves from the inside out. And one morning, months into your healing, you step outside, feel the sun on your face, and realize something quietly monumental. You are awake. Awake in a way that isn't just biological, but emotional. Awake in a city addicted to dreams, illusions, and escape. And you're choosing reality. Not because it's easy, not because it's glamorous, but because it's finally yours. The studio decides you need rest, which sounds nice until they put you in a room with a clipboard-wielding man who studies your sleep like you're a stressed-out zoo penguin. Electrodes attached to your scalp, a camera watches your eyelids twitch, and someone keeps asking if you're relaxed yet while you lie awake wondering if this is how people become ghosts. The researchers scribble notes enthusiastically every time you fail to fall asleep, red devils humming through your bloodstream like tiny chaotic violinists. The room they call a sleep lab looks less like a sanctuary for rest, and more like a place where villains in silent films perform questionable science. There's a bed, technically, but it's too white, too crisp, too self-aware. It sits under fluorescent lights that hum faintly, as if even the electricity is judging you. The air smells like lavender sprayed over mild dread. The man with the clipboard introduces himself with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He ushers you onto the bed as though preparing you for a tax audit. "We just want to help you rest," he says, before attaching wires to your scalp, chest, wrists, and, mysteriously, your ankle. The electrodes cling to you like cold, confused leeches trying to understand human ambition. "Try to relax," he says. You stare at him. You are lying in a sterile room under surveillance while strapped to a web of wires like a budget science experiment. Relaxation has never felt farther away. A technician sits behind a large window, observing you like you're a nocturnal animal in a poorly funded documentary. Each time your eyelids flutter or you shift slightly, they scribble notes as if witnessing groundbreaking behaviour. You begin to wonder what they'd do if you simply sat up and said, "I'm not a penguin, you know." But you don't. You stay still. You comply. Hollywood has trained you well. The red devils drifting through your bloodstream make the whole situation even stranger. The pills were supposed to help you sleep, but instead they render your thoughts glossy and loud. Every creak in the walls sounds like a haunted whisper. Every heartbeat feels like a drum solo echoing inside your ribs. You close your eyes, willing your body to shut down. Instead, you become hyper-aware of everything. The sheets brushing your legs, the hum of the lights, the faint whir of the camera watching your every breath. Still awake? The technician's voice crackles through the speaker. You resist the urge to reply, "I'm trying my best not to become a supernatural entity." Instead, you mumble something neutral. More notes are scribbled. The clipboard man beams as if your insomnia is the highlight of his career. After an hour of not sleeping, they dim the lights. "This should help," he says. It does not help. The darkness only sharpens your awareness of the camera in the corner, with its little red light winking at you, recording every failed attempt at drifting off. You begin personifying the camera. You wonder if it pities you. You decide it probably doesn't. It works for the studio. Another hour passes. You try meditation. You try breathing exercises. You try imagining peaceful landscapes, but your brain keeps replacing the tranquil meadow with a mental image of the clipboard man nodding academically, while you fail to be a functional human. Occasionally the researchers murmur excitedly as if you've done something thrilling like wiggle a toe. "Look at that alpha wave shift," someone whispers. You have no idea what that means. You suspect neither do they. Everyone in the room seems thrilled that you're actively failing at sleeping. By hour 3, you've transcended ordinary tiredness. You now exist in a liminal space between consciousness and mild existential crisis. You stare at the ceiling tiles, counting them not because it's soothing, but because it's literally the only activity not hindered by electrodes glued to your skull. Eventually, mercifully, your body surrenders. You slip into sleep not gracefully but reluctantly, like a cat pushed off a couch. When you awaken, groggy and bewildered, the researchers swarm with glee. Fascinating results, they say, as if you've just performed a rare and wondrous trick. They hand you a printed report filled with graphs and jargon that mean nothing. "This will help us tailor your treatment plan," they say cheerfully. You nod, even though your treatment plan seems to be more pills, more monitoring, less actual rest. As they remove the electrodes, your skin stings slightly, a reminder that even in sleep, Hollywood demands performance. And as you step out into the morning air, blinking at the sunlight like a creature released from a lab enclosure, one truth echoes softly through your mind. In Hollywood, even rest becomes work. And sometimes, healing means escaping the people who claim to fix you. Your fan mail arrives in crates, some letters glowing with love, others containing unsolicited poetry about your elbows. People adore you so intensely it's almost alarming. They send gifts, photos, and occasionally locks of their own hair, which you absolutely did not request. You smile for every autograph signing, even though you're running on 3 hours of chemically negotiated sleep. The world believes you're magical. You believe you might just be dehydrated. Fame has a peculiar way of reshaping reality. It takes everyday interactions, greetings, compliments, admiration, and inflates them to parade balloon size. Suddenly everything is bigger, louder, more dramatic. Even affection becomes theatrical. Your fans don't just like you, they adore you. They talk about you with the devotion usually reserved for saints and limited edition kitchenware. The mailroom is your first glimpse into this parallel universe. Stacked crates overflow with letters written in looping cursive, bold typewriter font, glitter pen, and occasionally your ominous red ink that looks suspiciously like it came from a crime scene. Some messages are sweet, heartfelt notes about how your films changed someone's life. Others drift into the surreal, praising your celestial aura or insisting your left eyebrow has healing properties. Then there are the gifts. Plush toys, hand-painted portraits, homemade cookies that your publicist snatches away before you can accidentally ingest something unregulated, and of course, the hair. Why your fans believe you need a sample of their DNA is unclear, but you try to receive it graciously, even as your soul quietly leaves your body. You want to appreciate all of it. You really do. But you're exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that makes your handwriting wobble and your vision sparkle at the edges. Autograph sessions stretch on for hours, each signature another reminder that your wrist too has limits. The fans line up in winding serpentine queues, each person trembling with excitement as if meeting you is a spiritual pilgrimage. You smile for every one of them, even the ones who stare too long. Even the ones who recite poems about your clavicle. Even the ones who bring their pet ferret to meet you because he's your biggest fan. You sign glossy photos of yourself, photos that look far more rested than you currently feel. Your publicist whispers reminders at intervals. Bigger smile, less dead in the eyes, try to look conscious. You comply, though internally you feel like a decorative wax figure that's beginning to melt. Some fans cry when they meet you, great shaking sobs of emotion that make you pat their hands awkwardly, as though you're both participating in a ritual you do not fully understand. Others swear you've saved their lives despite the fact that, as far as you know, your life-saving abilities are limited to not tripping during musical numbers. Occasionally someone asks a question that pierces you in a soft, startling way. Are you happy? You respond automatically, of course, but inside the truth stirs, tired, tangled, unsure, because fame demands a perfect face, a perfect voice, a perfect answer. Your fans see the glamorous version of you, meticulously sculpted by publicists, lighting, and several coffee-fueled personalities behind the scenes. They don't see the trembling hands holding the Red Devil bottle. They don't see the insomnia, the panic, the exhaustion that drapes over your days like a too heavy coat. Yet their adoration is real, and powerful, and bizarrely grounding. In the middle of chaos, their belief in you becomes a strange form of comfort, like being handed a cheering section while your internal organs are quietly filing complaints. Still, the pressure grows. The more they adore you, the more you fear disappointing them. Every autograph becomes a promise. Every photo becomes a contract. Every trembling fan gaze becomes a reminder that you're no longer just a person. You are a projection screen for other people's dreams. And yet there are moments of grace. A child gifting you a drawing they made themselves. An elderly woman thanking you for making her laugh. A shy fan whispering that your work helped them through grief. These are the moments that soften you, that slip past the exhaustion and settle gently in your chest like warm embers. You walk away from each event drained but strangely buoyed, as though held afloat by thousands of hands reaching out with love, confusion, devotion, and occasionally hair. Because fame is bizarre, and fans are intense, and you're exhausted. But somewhere beneath the fog of sedatives and sleepless days, their adoration reminds you that you matter, even when you barely remember how to feel awake. Every morning, you open the newspaper to discover a brand new version of yourself you didn't authorize, wild, dramatic, and apparently dating 3 men you've never met. Paparazzi lurk behind bushes like nervous raccoons with flashbulbs, waiting to catch you blinking incorrectly. If you look tired, they diagnose you with ruin. If you look too awake, they assume drugs. Congratulations, you now exist in a reality where a sneeze can become a headline. Tabloids have a special talent for transforming your life into an ongoing circus, complete with popcorn, spotlights, and zero factual accuracy. They take your Tuesday, a perfectly ordinary Tuesday in which you drank lukewarm coffee and briefly considered taking up knitting, and turn it into a scandal with the urgency of a national emergency. Star in trouble, the headline screams, while you stare at it thinking, I was literally just buying socks. Your publicist advises you not to read the tabloids. They thrive on chaos, she whispers, like someone describing a wild animal that shouldn't be fed. Of course, you read them anyway. Curiosity wins every time. And there you are on page 1, dishevelled, mid-blink, caught between breaths, looking like you've just learned fire. The accompanying article confidently diagnoses you with burnout, heartbreak, dehydration, a secret marriage, an affair with your co-star, and possibly a haunting. The truth that you simply tripped on an uneven sidewalk is deemed irrelevant. The paparazzi are the real protagonists of this theatrical nightmare. They appear out of nowhere, materializing behind fences, hedges, car doors, small children, and once, alarmingly, a decorative topiary shaped like a dolphin. They communicate in clicks, hundreds of rapid-fire camera snaps that make you wonder if they're trying to summon something mystical. You step outside to breathe air, and suddenly the sound of shutters erupts like popcorn kernels going rogue. Blink wrong and you're exhausted. Blink too slowly and you're sedated. Blink not at all and they assume you're angry. Your face becomes a public battleground of speculation. Sometimes you try to outsmart them. You wear sunglasses the size of dinner plates. You angle your hat strategically. You go out the back door, the side door, the roof door. That's definitely not meant for human exit door. Still, they find you, crouched behind trash bins, perched on ladders, leaning out of cars like dogs with better equipment. Their dedication is almost admirable, terrifying, but admirable. And oh, the stories they write. One day you're too thin, the next day you're shockingly swollen. One outlet claims you're pregnant, another claims you've never been more alone. A third swears you were seen at a diner with a man who at closer inspection turns out to be a coat rack. The tabloids don't care about reality. Reality doesn't sell. Fantastical chaos does. Your face becomes a blank canvas on which they paint every fear, fantasy, and fever dream their readership can stomach. You stop recognizing the version of yourself they describe. She sounds dramatic, exhausting, fictional. You almost feel bad for her. She seems to be going through a lot, and yet the public consumes it eagerly. Fans write letters begging you to stay strong. Strangers send advice about hydration. Radio hosts declare their concern. Your aunt clips articles and mails them to you with post-it notes reading, "Is this true?" while you sit at your kitchen table sipping tea perfectly unharmed, wondering how you became the protagonist of 30 simultaneous melodramas. Over time, your relationship with the tabloids shifts. At first, they anger you. Then, they exhaust you. Eventually, they amuse you, not because the stories are funny, but because they're so detached from reality, they might as well be mythological. You become part celebrity, part cryptid, a legend people claim to spot doing bizarre things under questionable lighting conditions. But beneath the absurdity runs a quiet truth. The tabloids don't merely observe your exhaustion, they feed it, they amplify it, they profit from it, and still every morning you open the paper, and every morning you meet a new version of yourself, one that never existed but somehow now belongs to you. Some nights, rare ones, you sit by your window with no cameras, no scripts, no demands. The city hums below you, the moon glows gently, and for a moment you remember the version of yourself that existed before studio contracts and pill bottles. You breathe like a person instead of a performer. You feel your heart beat without counting the seconds between doses. It's peaceful and terrifying. Because here, in the quiet, you realize how much of yourself Hollywood has borrowed and how much you want back. The quiet used to feel empty. Now it feels like a lifeline, thin, trembling, precious. You sit there, back pressed against the cool window frame, legs curled beneath you, listening to Los Angeles murmur to itself far below. Car engines purr. A distant siren wails. Somewhere, a couple argues on a balcony with the earnest intensity of two people who believe the whole city is listening. But up here, in this little pocket of stillness, none of it touches you. For the first time in what feels like centuries, your mind is not wrapped in cotton or dangling from pharmaceutical puppet strings. It's just yours, a quiet, steady hum instead of the chaotic violin orchestra the Red Devils used to summon. You can actually hear your own thoughts, not the panicked ones, not the rehearsed ones, not the ones shaped for interviews, but the soft, original ones you forgot you even had. At first, they frighten you. They arrive shyly, like animals emerging from a forest after a storm. What do you want? What do you feel? Who are you, really, when no one is watching? They are enormous questions, bigger than anything you've been allowed to consider. Hollywood teaches you to avoid these corners of your mind. They're inefficient, unprofitable, too human. But tonight, in the glow of moonlight and distant neon, you let them in. You remember small things, ridiculously small things, the way you used to laugh with your whole chest, the way you used to sleep deeply without fear, the way your hands used to move when you spoke, animated, unfiltered, alive. You remember dreams you once had, not the polished ones your publicist sells, but the ones that made your heart sprint when you were young and still believed possibility was endless. A breeze slips through the cracked window carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine. You inhale and your ribs expand fully, freely. You realize how long it's been since breathing felt like anything other than survival. Each inhale uncurls something inside you. Each exhale lets go of something that was never meant to stay. But alongside the peace is fear. A quiet, prickling fear that trembles at the edges of your thoughts. Because remembering who you were means confronting who you became, and who you became wasn't your choice. Not entirely. You think of the pills, the schedules, the expectations, the smiling masks, the exhausted bones hidden under satin gowns. You think of how much of yourself you traded away, one piece at a time, believing it was temporary, believing you'd reclaim it later, believing the studio when they promised they'd take care of you. Hollywood never takes care. Hollywood borrows, and it rarely returns things in the condition it received them. You rest your forehead against the cool glass. Down below, the city glitters, a mosaic of hope and illusion, heartbreak and ambition, beautifully stitched together with just enough magic to keep you believing. And yet, for the first time, you see it clearly. All the shimmer, all the shadows. You sit there for a long time listening to your own heartbeat. It doesn't race, it doesn't tremble, it just beats. Soft, steady, present. It feels like a stranger you're getting reacquainted with after years apart. And in that fragile stillness, you make a promise to yourself, not grand, not dramatic, just a quiet vow whispered into the night. You will not disappear again. Not into pills, not into roles, not into expectations that demand your silence in exchange for applause. You will reclaim the parts of you that Hollywood borrowed, piece by piece, breath by breath, night by night. Because in this moment, this rare, trembling moment of quiet, you finally feel something you haven't felt in a very long time. You are still here, and you are still becoming. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blankets and let the noise of the day drift off like a fading spotlight, take a slow breath. and remember the world you just walked through. That shimmering, sleepless Hollywood where every smile had a contract behind it, every dream came with a warning label, and every red devil pill whispered promises it could never keep. It was a place where beauty was currency, charm was armor, and exhaustion was just part of the job description. You survived studios that scheduled your emotions, directors who expected you to glow on command, fans who adored you a little too intensely, and doctors who truly believed the cure for everything was just take one more. And somehow, despite the pressure, the sleepless nights, and the quiet fog drifting behind every glamorous photo, people still laughed, still loved, still created things bright enough to outlast them. Because that's the strange magic of history. Even in the messiest chapters, people cling to hope with both hands. Even when the world hands them something dangerous disguised as help, they try to keep going anyway. Fame didn't save them. Pills didn't save them. Perfection didn't save them, but their stubbornness, their warmth, their little human moments did. And as you lie in your safe bed, with your warm blankets, your quiet room, and no studio boss calling you at 3 a.m., maybe whisper a soft thank you to those who came before. The ones who navigated a world built on glitter and pressure, who carried the weight of an entire industry on their shoulders, and who reminded us, in their brilliance and their struggle, that being human is complicated and beautiful and absurd in all the best ways. Because history may be dramatic, heartbreaking, and occasionally hopped up on barbiturates, but it's also a testament to resilience, to the way people keep standing back up, even when they're tired, to the way they reach for light, even in the shadows, to the way they survive, even when the odds say they shouldn't. So let the world soften around you. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts float further and further away, like the last flicker of a marquee turning off for the night. You're safe. You're warm. And unlike the stars of old Hollywood, you don't need a pill to sleep, just a moment of stillness and a story to drift away with. Rest now. You made it through another night, and tomorrow will be gentler.